Dennis Porter, a 7-year-old boy, went through a terrible accident with his mother. Sadly, she didn't survive her injuries, leaving Dennis all alone. Just when he was losing hope, something unbelievable happened. It was nighttime, and it was raining heavily, but Dennis and his mother, Ellison, needed to get back home. "Let's go, sweetheart. I left your favorite food in the oven. We'll eat together when we get there," Ellison said as she buckled Dennis into his car seat. This routine was almost a daily occurrence, and Dennis always fell asleep on the ride home. They lived in the small town of Griffin, but Ellison worked in Atlanta, where her company's main office was located. To stay close to her son during the day, she enrolled Dennis in a school near her workplace. Since they had no other family members, they were very close to each other. The drives home were usually calm, but that night, the rain was heavier than usual. Dennis was startled by the loud noise of passing trucks, but everything seemed under control. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Ellison was driving carefully while Dennis slept in his car seat in the back. Suddenly, a truck driver tried to overtake another vehicle at high speed and crashed into the side of Ellison's car. The car was thrown off the road. It spun on the wet pavement and rolled over. Dazed and frightened by what had happened, Ellison looked to the back seat, searching for her son. But her seatbelt and the car's position made it hard for her to reach him. "Stay calm, honey. It's over. We're okay," she said. Dennis felt more at ease hearing his mother's voice and told her he was okay in his car seat. He wanted to cry but was too scared even to let the tears fall. It took about 30 minutes for help to arrive. The truck driver, responsible for the crash, was the one who called for assistance. He explained that he was rushing to get home for his young daughter's birthday but couldn't see clearly because of the rain. Regardless of his intentions, he missed the birthday altogether, as he was taken to the police station while Ellison and Dennis were rushed to a nearby hospital by ambulance. It was only when the doctors started examining mother and son that they realized not everything was fine. The doctors assessed Dennis and, surprisingly, found no cause for concern. However, Ellison was in a more serious condition. Maybe her worry for her son and the adrenaline of the moment had masked her injuries, but the doctors discovered a severe internal bleeding, and she needed emergency surgery. Dennis felt lost with all the doctors running around his mother. "Boy, how about we get something to eat?" said one doctor, taking him away from the scene. His name was Kevin, a newly graduated resident. When he asked about Dennis's father, the boy said he had never met him and didn't know who he was. Dennis ate a sandwich and a scoop of ice cream, but as soon as he could, he asked the doctor, "Sir, will my mommy be okay?" Kevin, still inexperienced with situations like this, had no answer. He remembered what he had learned in medical school. Never promise something you can't guarantee. "Boy, I'm sure my colleagues are doing everything they can for your mom. But don't worry, okay? Soon you'll be back home," he said. Kevin stayed by the boy's side until he finally fell asleep. After a long while, one of the doctors finally came and said that Ellison, still in surgery, was conscious and wanted to see her son. Kevin already had an idea of what was happening. He woke Dennis up and took him to his mother, who was lying in a hospital bed. Ellison, with a weak voice, asked Dennis to come closer. "My dear, I want you to promise that you'll always be an honest boy and take care of others, just like you did with me. Above all, promise to be strong like never before because your life is about to change," she said. Finally, Ellison added, "Dennis, know that I love you, and I will always take care of you, wherever I am." Tears ran down Ellison's face as she hugged her son for the last time. That same night, Ellison passed away, leaving Dennis to face the world all alone, without a father or any family. Social services were contacted, and Dennis had to be taken to an orphanage. The boy resisted a lot at first. It was hard to accept that, just a short time ago, he had a home, a mother who loved him more than anything, and a stable routine. Now all of that was gone. The funeral was simple and modest, attended only by Kevin and a few of Ellison's co-workers. During the farewell, Dennis, in tears, made a promise. "I will always come visit you, Mom. I will never forget your last words and who you were to me." The first nights at the orphanage were extremely difficult. His last peaceful sleep had been in the car, on the way home, before the accident. Since then, whenever he managed to sleep, the memories would return even stronger, especially at night. He often dreamed that Ellison would walk through the orphanage door to pick him up. When he woke up, he was still wrapped in the feeling the dream brought him. He spent hours thinking about it, becoming more and more isolated, as he didn't interact much with the other children. Since he was the newcomer, the children would tease him. "Are you thinking about your mom's ghost again? You better stop acting so spoiled and accept that she's dead. No one will want to adopt a crying baby like you." The orphanage staff didn't seem to care about the teasing and let things take their natural course. Some mornings, they would take all the children to the local park, where there were playgrounds and chances for the new children to interact with the older ones. However, this didn't work with Dennis. When he realized the park was close to the cemetery where his mother was buried, he pulled away from the group and ran to keep his promise, to always visit his mother. While everyone was distracted, Dennis saw his chance. He couldn't leave the orphanage whenever he wanted, so he had to act fast. When he got to his mother's grave, he sat down and began to open up about how his life had been without her. It was amazing how, in just 10 minutes, he spoke more than he had in all the weeks since he arrived at the orphanage. To Dennis, it felt like his mom was really there, listening to him. He could even imagine what she would say and how she would laugh at the funny things he told her. "Mom, I miss you so much," he thought constantly, as if it were a mantra. Through tears, Dennis told how difficult it was to live in the orphanage, how the other children were cruel, and how the staff did nothing to help. "I have nothing left here. I have no one, and I can't be happy like I was with you, Mom," said Dennis, raising his voice, full of anger and pain. "I wish I could disappear from this world. I don't want to live without you. Take me with you. Take me," he screamed. Suddenly, a hand gently touched Dennis's shoulder and began to comfort him, as if wanting to soothe him. He felt a warmth in his chest, something so real it seemed like a dream. He turned around quickly and saw a woman with a welcoming smile. "Are you okay? I saw you were crying and decided to check if you needed anything," said the mysterious woman. Dennis tried to dry his tears and respond, but he couldn't speak. "Look, I know it's hard. But I see you don't want to be alone. How about I sit here next to you? We can stay together if you want," she suggested, trying to comfort him. Dennis nodded. The woman, who introduced herself as Kate, explained that she was there to visit her son's grave, who had passed away a few years ago. He was a little older than Dennis. Gradually, the boy felt comfortable enough to talk and told her that his mother had passed away recently. He explained that he had run away from the orphanage outing to visit her. They talked for a while until Kate offered to take him back to the orphanage. Dennis didn't know the exact address but remembered the streets he had walked. On the way back, they passed by a park, and Dennis was fascinated by a carousel. Kate noticed his expression and encouraged him. "Why don't you ride one of the horses?" The carousel began to spin, and Dennis smiled for the first time in weeks. While looking around, he noticed twinkling lights in the trees and Christmas decorations, indicating that it was already the Christmas season. When he got off the ride, he stepped on something bulky. Looking down, he saw a leather wallet. Since there were few people in the park, he discreetly picked it up and looked around, trying to spot the owner. When he opened the wallet, Dennis was shocked. He had never seen so much money in his life. Several $100 bills were inside, some of them wrinkled. It was enough money for him to escape the orphanage for good. He returned to Kate but didn't mention what he had found. He wondered how someone could lose so much money and not come back to look for it. As they were leaving the park, Dennis and Kate passed by a security guard. Feeling a shock run through his body, he remembered the promise he made to his mom on her deathbed, to be honest and kind to others. He took a deep breath, pulled the wallet from his pocket, and handed it to the guard. "Someone lost this near the carousel," Dennis said. The guard looked at him, surprised. "My goodness. Good thing you found Mr. Watson's wallet, boy. He's one of the longest-serving staff members in the park, and he was devastated to have lost his entire year-end salary. You just saved his family's Christmas," the man said, smiling. Turning to Kate, the guard added, "Congratulations on your son, miss. You must be very proud of him." This last comment left both of them silent. When Kate and Dennis finally arrived at the orphanage, they expected to find everyone worried about the boy's disappearance. To their surprise, the staff showed no concern at all. It was as if they hadn't even noticed he was gone. The other children, noticing the discomfort caused, began to mock him. "See? Nobody missed the crying baby. You better run to your bed, because that's all you're good for." Kate was stunned by the staff's indifference. She left with a heavy heart and decided to enter a church not far from there. She prayed fervently that Dennis would find a loving family who would take him in and give him the care he deserved. In the following days, Kate couldn't have a single peaceful night of sleep. One night, she dreamed of her deceased son, the one she had visited in the cemetery the day she met Dennis. It had been years since Kate had dreamed of him, and it deeply affected her. Unable to fall back asleep, she got up to get a glass of water in the kitchen, while the painful memory of that tragic day returned to her mind. Her last memory with her son was at the beach, as they often did almost every weekend. While applying sunscreen, she got distracted for a few seconds, and he went into the sea alone. When she realized he wasn't by the shore anymore, her heart froze. Hours later, he was found by the rescue team, but it was too late. The boy had lost his life. In the dream, the boy appeared in a house and insisted, "Mom, please take me with you." He handed her a note with an address. Still holding the glass of water in the kitchen, Kate remembered the address mentioned in the dream and, fearing she might forget it, wrote it down on a piece of paper. Even though she thought it might just be her imagination, she decided to check it the next morning. At dawn, Kate told her husband about the day she met Dennis and the strange dreams of her deceased son. "My love, I don't understand these things, but if our son is trying to tell you something, I think you should listen," said her husband thoughtfully. Kate took the paper with the address and, when checking on her phone, realized that the place really existed. It was a home for orphan children, the same one where Dennis lived. Her husband was confused, thinking it was too much of a coincidence, but Kate confessed. "I connected with that child that day in the cemetery. I felt like he needed me, but I also needed him. We kept each other company. He's an honest boy, and for the first time in a long time, I felt complete again." Her husband hugged her tightly and announced that they would go to the orphanage immediately. When they arrived, they were greeted by an employee who explained that visiting hours were over and that appointments had to be made by phone in advance. Her husband tried to argue, explaining the situation, but the employee seemed unyielding. Then, remembering the neglect towards the children that Kate had mentioned, the man had an idea. He discreetly offered two $50 bills to the employee, who accepted without asking any more questions. "My boss isn't here, so enjoy," said the man with a sly smile as he opened the door. As they entered the room, Kate immediately recognized Dennis. He was sitting alone on the sofa, while the other children played. As soon as he saw Kate, Dennis ran to her and hugged her tightly. Her husband took the moment to speak with the boy. "Hey, tell me, what were you doing at the cemetery at that time?" Dennis, now more comfortable, looked at the floor and replied, "I was talking to my mom, sir. I was asking her to take me away from here. Far away." The response shocked the couple. How could someone so young say something so full of pain? Kate and her husband exchanged hesitant looks, but they already knew what they wanted to do: adopt Dennis and take him home. However, the situation wasn't that simple. Kate was afraid of seeming like she was trying to replace her lost son. Deep down, though, she believed the dream might have been a way of receiving permission to open her heart to love again, to accept another child into her life. After all, since her son's death, her life felt incomplete, and nothing or no one had been able to fill that void. Perhaps Dennis was the answer they had been searching for. After many discussions at home and creating a plan to face the complicated adoption process, the couple decided it was time to move forward. The most important thing was to give a home to someone who desperately needed it. They spent months fulfilling all the necessary requirements to adopt Dennis. During this time, they visited him almost daily, ensuring that he was being well cared for. After what felt like an eternity, the big day finally came. Dennis saw Kate and her husband in the orphanage's reception, waiting with tears in his eyes. Kate opened her arms, and Dennis ran toward her. The hug they shared moved the staff at the institution and even some of the children who used to mock Dennis. Finally, Dennis went home with his new family. Over time, he stopped being a withdrawn child and began to relate better to those around him. During a Sunday lunch, a tradition that seemed to have settled in the new family, Dennis proudly declared, I thank you so much for everything, but I also thank my mom. I'm sure that somehow, it was her who brought me out of the orphanage. After all, she promised she'd take care of me. Kate, emotional, replied, "The day I met you, I went to a church and prayed that you would find a family that would love and care for you. I just didn't imagine that this family would be mine." From then on, Dennis and his new parents visited the cemetery once a month, in memory of their deceased loved ones. Dennis always brought a bouquet of roses to decorate his mother's grave. Kate also made a point of being by her son's grave, ensuring that both would never be forgotten. They felt that, in some mysterious way, they had been the ones responsible for bringing together this unlikely family, who now lived happily once again. After one of the cemetery visits, they walked to the park. Dennis, full of energy, ran to the carousel, his favorite ride. While the boy spun and had fun, Kate and her husband watched him attentively, full of care and affection. If you liked the story, give it a like. And don't forget to watch the other video that's appearing on the screen now. I'm sure it will move you as well. Enjoy the session, and see you in the next video.